No mai, haere mai. Welcome to Board Talks. This is going to be a super exciting discussion today, so thank you for joining us. Just as everyone's kind of coming online, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about Board Talks. This is our third year. We've had many different topics, all designed for those who serve in governance roles and serve our community organisations. So thank you to all the wonderful work that you do. Just as you're joining, it would be neat to, if you'd like, just let us know in the chat where you're zooming in from, and maybe the organisation as well that you might be a board member of. Just as everyone's kind of coming online. Kia ora, Gay Lead. So she's from the Tuarā Hospice. Whereabouts is that Gay Lead? Probably got people joining from all over Aotearoa, so it'd be great to hear where you're from as well. We've got Sue, community comms, lots of people. Lisa Whenua, community education, kia ora. Parafed Manawa 2, we just had a good governance talk down there. Welcome. New Zealand Rugby Foundation. Kia ora, Andrew. We've got quite a few people on the call with us today, and all of our board talks are recorded, and you can listen in, watch it later, or share with a friend, or also join on our podcast, which is on Spotify post-talk. Welcome to everyone. There's lots of people from zooming in all over the place. We're just going to do a little bit of a different thing this morning. We'll just ask this afternoon, who knows the name of that little robot in the picture? This is AI. I don't know if this is sci-fi, but it's kind of, might be the same thing. Anyone knows what the little robot's name is? I'm kind of betting Anthony might be a bit maybe.
I'll let everyone else have a chance to answer.
Oh, look, I did. I pinned it. He knows the name.
Would you believe, Rose, I'm colour coordinator with him this afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, look at all the fantastic. Someone's joining from Rarotonga. Oh, it's making everyone else jealous, so welcome. And from Wellington. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. Kia ora, Anna.
One of my favourite places in the world. Kia ora.
Kia ora. That's fantastic, and isn't it the joy of technology? You can join wherever and come together and share in all the knowledge that we're going to explore today. So it's a super exciting kind of topic, is this AI and what's the future for our sector. We would like to thank Kat Huda, who's also sponsors our Board Talk series this year. So just before we get into it, I'm just going to share a little bit about our sector. So our community sector in Aotearoa is made up of 115,000 not-for-profits or NGOs. So that's a huge sector. When we talk about sector, that's made up of different structures like incorporated societies, charities, advisory groups, marae committees. We've got many different governing structures, but that whole sector is our community sector. So today's talk is going to be about AI. It's definitely on topic for many of us, and we're going to explore all these kind of things today with a fantastic panel. So we're going to get into it now. We're going to bring our panel on. Today we've got Hilary, Anthony and Dan. They can all introduce themselves and the wonderful organisations that they're representing today.
Would you like me to go first?
Yes, please.
Hi everyone, kia ora, I'm Hilary Walton. I'm a technology strategist at Microsoft. Prior to that, I was a Chief Information Security Officer, so looking after cybersecurity for a telco in New Zealand called Kordia. Got quite a diverse background though, so obviously technology and cybersecurity, but started my career as a psychologist. I'm also a governor. I am an independent director on the Christchurch City Council. Over to you, Dan.
Kia ora koutou, he orone koroiri ke tātua e maunga ro Te Whenua Walker whai ki ngā tangata katoa a o kono we a kono waita e Māori ora. Hua mai, ko ai au, hiri waki ke aunanga iwi kei raro e te koro ai te mangiti to ia arakata waka Aotea. ko tito ko ore te tangata ko mani ia kata apu ko Ngāti Ruanui ngā rau ini kiwi. Ko tōku koro no Maniapoto me Tainui, ko tōku kuia no Tūhaurangi me Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairoa, ko tōku pāpā ko Ngāti Pākehā tōna iwi, ka puta mai ko au ko Dan Te Whenua Walker. So kia ora everyone, Dan Walker's my name. I come from Taranaki dudes. I saw some Taranaki whānau in here, kia ora. Got married in Rarotonga, so kia ora ana. But grew up in Christchurch, so I saw some Ōtautahi whānau there, and shout out to Hills from Ōtautahi as well. But live in Tāmaki Makaurau now, so pay respects to our mana whenua up here. Been at Microsoft now for 5 years. I look after our partners across Australia and New Zealand. Been doing that for the last 3 years, but prior to that, I was an Azure specialist looking after our cloud, and have had over 20 plus years in the tech industry. So involved in that, but then also involved in many beautiful nonprofits, and some of them are on here. I've been getting texts. So involved with Child Cancer Foundation, Ronald McDonald House, and also many other awesome nonprofits as well. Kia ora. Over to you, Ant.
Kia ora koutou, ko Anthony McMahon toku ingoa. Hi everyone, Anthony. I'm many moons ago from Wellington, but I'm also up here in Auckland, dialing in with lovely sunny backdrop behind me. I am also a tech strategist. My background has been working with enterprise and corporate, but I work with a range of businesses now, helping shape up the direction, roadmap and pathway that organisations will be taking. I've worked with a diverse range of organisations in the last few years. That's included Ronald McDonald House, Drowning Prevention Auckland, SPCA and Auckland Theatre Company. All as not-for-profits and community organisations, and I also serve on the board of trustees for Camp Quality Aotearoa. Looking forward to talking with you all today.
Oh, thank you. And what a wonderful panel. So lots of experience that we need to help us work through this topic of AI, and also that you all serve in community roles as well. So that's equally just important. So I haven't come across anyone that hasn't served in some capacity or been involved in community organisation. So yeah, much aroha out to everyone. Okay, so Anthony, but did you answer the question of who that little robot was? So no one else in the chat I can see.
No, someone did get it in the chat.
Okay.
I saw them pretty early on. There was someone that picked up that it was BB-8. So
there you go. Nice. Hopefully the Star Wars people don't get me because I use their little caption. So okay, so I think
Jarvie got that one. So well done, Jarvie.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to explore AI in the future, that the impact, the challenges we might face, the opportunities. What is this going to look like for us? Do we have all the answers? We might not. We'll just have to kind of work through that today. But we're going to start off with what is AI. Hilary's going to answer this for us. What is AI, Hilary?
Yeah, because it's everywhere, right? It's all over the news. Everyone seems to be talking about AI. And the reason they're doing that is because we are seeing this real kind of platform shift at the moment, which is really significant. And I kind of like to compare it to you're playing a board game and the rules have changed. And so you're moving from one level to the next, or leveling up, as my kids would say. So that's kind of where we are with AI, and why it's sort of why everyone's talking about it and why everyone's sort of trying to work out what it is. It's also important for organisations because it's quite tied to economic growth at the moment as well. Often when countries get richer, it's because there's been a technology change, and we're seeing sort of that curve in terms of gross GDP and then technology change. It's the increase is really getting really steep, so a lot of change. In terms of what AI is, though, so you've probably heard ChatGPT. That's the one that everyone knows about. So that is OpenAI's most famous generative AI offering. GPT is a crazy kind of acronym. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And it's anyone who's kind of played with ChatGPT, if there's anyone out there in the audience who has done that, some of the real magic is, I think, in how quickly it can create really credible responses to quite complex questions. So that's the kind of generative part of that GPT. The other part is that it's trained on a massive data set, like in the vicinity of almost the whole internet. So that's the bit that the model knows, and that's the pre-trained part. And then the transformer part is that it can actually, take text and turn it into, for example, an image or a video or even different languages. So that's the transformer part. And it's quite different to some of the AI that we have known previously. AI is not a new thing. It's actually been around for a number of years, like dating back to the 1950s almost. That's when we sort of started working on this as humans. But the real difference now is in this, with these GPTs, just the ability for it to kind of think and reason and do that super quickly. And so that's why it's having such an impact at the moment. And the other thing is it's like having a conversation with a computer, because it can remember what you've spoken about. So it's just really different from what we've experienced with Amazon Alexa or even Apple Siri currently. I know that those things will change. But it's, someone who can kind of explain something to us very patiently. That's kind of what the computer can do for us at the moment.
Yeah, so it's kind of like having someone who is a good friend that will take the time and explain what you want to know in a good language and give you some good tips and tricks along the way.
I heard someone say they've got unlimited patience, which is good for someone like me. You can't marry a ChatGPT, unfortunately, but yeah, it's nice to have unlimited patience when you don't understand something.
Yeah, and it's also talking about AI. So it's a technology shift, and we're hearing all these kind of words. So we'll hear Google. We just talked about Alexa and Microsoft, the work that you're doing. But just for those who kind of just serve on community boards and as in our roles and responsibilities as not-for-profit directors, it's how to understand where do we go with this. So I'm really keen to explore, is there anything that you're seeing that's happening overseas with the advancement in technology and the use and the investment? We're seeing it's huge. But how do we pick up all that good stuff and bring it over here to Aotearoa and thinking about us as a community governance organisations? How do we apply what's coming and kind of get ahead of the game now? And how would we use this? Or what are you seeing, what those trends are? So who's gonna start with that?
I think Hills actually had some really good stuff. I'll jump in, and then Hills and Ant, you can sort of correct and say he's talking shit. But like, so there's a bunch of different offerings, as you say. There's Gemini, Google Gemini. There's Anthropic. Meta have got a truly open source offering called Llama. There's a bunch of others that like they're popping up all the time. There's just a new one that just launched yesterday, which was the old OpenAI founder has gone off and started its own one. So there's lots of offerings out there. I think, and I saw Hill's presentation the other day where she talked about a structure in terms of how you can approach AI and starting with some first steps before you sort of dive in. And it comes back to looking at your strategy. What is your technology strategy for your organization? And rather than looking at your technology strategy as something at the side, how can it weave across all aspects of your organization, including your community? So how can you use AI across those connections into your community is something that's sort of thinking differently around making things easier for all aspects of your stakeholders, through from your board to the people who benefit from your charity, all the way through to the broader community as well, iwi, and even your staff.
Yeah, nice. It is at all those different levels, isn't it? So, Anthony, have you got any thoughts about that, or what you're kind of saying, or some picking up some things that you would recommend?
Probably just to build on what Dan's just covered off there as well. There's for many organisations, I think we need to just look at AI in terms of consumption and creation. And what I'm meaning with that is there's organisations like Microsoft and AWS, Google, I think Tesla or X have got their Grok. So there's a number of them that are creating the AI platforms. For the rest of us, for people like us, we should be worried about consuming and the consumption that we're doing around those platforms. So getting into a point where instead of one of the big trends that's being talked about now is the AI skills that organizations need. And it's for community-based organizations. That doesn't mean you need to know how to build an AI. The skills that you need is how you use the AIs that are available to you. And I'd also say is separating the hype from the reality. And I call this hype now. I saw yesterday Logitech, who make keyboards and mouses. They've released a mouse that has an AI button on it, and when you click that button, something happens. I haven't gone into full detail on what happens, but for me, that's a little bit of hype and marketing gimmick that Logitech have brought this thing into their tool that makes you want to buy their mouse. That's a little bit different to what a Copilot or a Gemini might be able to do for you, where I think that it's making sure that you're skilled and knowledgeable enough to separate hype from reality when it comes to AI.
Yeah, because if you've got all the tools but you don't know how to use it and you can't even remember what your password was to log on, then you're kind of stuck, aren't you? So I feel like the AI is a bit of a world of where we get to with finance and financials and accountancy talk. It can easily become overwhelming and really complex and difficult. Those that are experts in this, like you guys, the terminology, so it's like learning a new terminology of Chat GPT, Copilot, all these kind of overseas organisations who are running AI technology and that kind of thing. So it's kind of demystifying this whole world of technology lingo into actually, I'm on a board, my responsibility is to future-proof the organisation. I need to think about the risks that are happening. And kind of what you're saying, Dan, like how do we apply this to stakeholders, to our own board, how we function, how we operate, to the impacts it has on our teams and using this or not using it. So we will get through some of these questions, I know, because there's lots about data protection, there's lots about ethics. We've got some of the questions coming in. But if we just kind of think about what the terminology and the creation of different advancements in using AI, but how can we grapple with it as board not-for-profit directors? When it's overwhelming, that's what I'm kind of saying, when it's like, whoa.
And I totally get it as well, because it's actually requiring people to do some study on it. And I keep saying to people, you need to do at least 20 to 50 hours to try and work out what it is. But the problem is, sometimes we don't like learning new things, we know the old way, and then all of a sudden someone's saying, oh, you've got to study up on this and learn this as well. And then the other thing we're seeing is there's quite a lot of organizations and people who are like those really early adopters, like they're really into tech, and so they get involved really fast. And then at the moment, we're not getting over that kind of technology curve into kind of mainstream, because there's this, they call it the proof of concept pit of doom. So there's people who are playing with AI and making things, but there's not really that firm evidence at the moment that there is ROI or there's massive value, or at least the general population don't want to do it until there is the evidence and they see it. But the inevitable thing is that we do know that it does have a massive impact. Like even in New Zealand, Microsoft does some research called the Work Trend Index, and they found that in New Zealand, 84% of Kiwis are already using AI in their work. But interestingly, about 78% are hiding it from their employers, because maybe they feel like they're not supposed to be using it. And then the other part of it is they think if they're too good at the AI, that it might affect their job. So we're in this really kind of interesting kind of limbo place in terms of this technology is, it's changing, and it's going to change what our organizations look like and how we do our work and how we do our flow of work. But we haven't got everything sorted at the moment. We haven't got all our ducks in a row. And that's some of the guardrails that I think people are quite keen to chat through later.
Yes, and I'm going to pop in, hopefully everyone can see that. So I do just a shout out to Microsoft. But I do have Copilot. So that is basically like a little pop-up AI generated assistant friend that I can use. I have been using it, have been trialing it. And so I asked it this morning, what is AI? And it popped up that little robot image typing away at a keyboard. I don't know if you ever can see it. But and I instantly felt like that's myself, because it's what I do at the keyboard, typing away like that. But that was the image that it created of what AI is. So very interesting. And I know I've seen other presentations when people will create an image and it comes up with a flying unicorn or something kind of funny. But I do want to touch on something that you said, Hilary, which is a question I do have. So we do know that community organisations, we do use AI technology or to write our applications for funding. Our funding applications, we're using technology that's there. We also equally know that funders, so philanthropic sectors, trust, that kind of thing, who are assessing the applications are equally using and wanting to advance the tech to check. Now, put it to you guys, is this right or wrong? And why is it such an issue if we can use this tech that makes our life simple? So over to you guys.
I might let the Microsoft team go first from a technology perspective, and then I'll come back in from the non-tech ethical side as well.
Good. Okay.
It's really interesting.
You go, Hills, you go.
Sorry, I was surprised when I did see you say that the funding people are checking what's AI written or not. I think the problem is if a person using AI is just cutting and pasting and putting it in an application, then there's not a lot of thought that's gone into that. It's not contextualized. It hasn't got the right examples, the right information. I don't think using AI is wrong. I think it's a tool that we need to be using because it makes us faster, more efficient, potentially even better quality as well, if you're not really great at spelling or putting paragraphs together. So I think maybe that we're just in this transition where people are working out what's okay, what's not okay. But I definitely think AI is a tool for everyone to use, for sure.
Same. I use it all the time. So if there's tools that's going to say, hey, this guy's using AI, but I will say it's pretty obvious when you're just cutting and pasting ChatGPT stuff, because it's like it's okay, but it's not great, and it is getting better. But I think what it's really useful for is what they call the blank page problem. When you're really struggling with ideas, or even if you just got to get off the start mark, AI is perfect, man. It really helps a lot in that space. So you're right, there are tools. We don't want it to be thinking for us. And so in an education space, we've got to be careful about how it's being used. But I think for us, especially when we're thinking about funding, I know for a fact that there are heaps of organizations using AI for funding proposals, pitches. You can create your own custom AI. I helped one of my mates build a custom AI that is specific for his charity, and we've basically loaded up all of his funding documents in there, and it knows how he writes, and you can do that kind of stuff.
And probably to add on to what Hills and Dan are saying, I'm an advocate for using AI in the right way. And Copilot, I think, it's got the best name because of it is what it says on the tin. It's a Copilot. The way I'm using Copilot and other tools like that is for curation. So not creation, I'm not getting it to write my copy for me, but I'm putting my ideas in there and getting it to curate them into a way that makes sense for the audience as well. So as a board paper, you can take some information and say, the audience is a board, I need you to do this. You can put your thoughts down as a bullet point and then hit, right, help me write that board paper. It's going to give you a first draft. And if you consider that first draft as what you will then take away and work on and refine, that's perfect. It's the ethical side of it, is when you put it in and go, I have to write a board paper, or I have to apply for grant funding, write this paper for me, and then you just copy paste and drop it in. Ethically, that's a little bit vague. It's not just in the grant funding that we're seeing this either. Recruitment, so people are dropping their CVs in, recruiters are dropping the CVs in on the other side to see what comes out. We know it's happening. And I guess for me, the ethical side of it is, as long as you're transparent that, hey, I did write some of this with Copilot, or I did write some of this with Gemini, but it's still my own work. I've just used that to help curate it. That's the bit that means that it's more likely to be trusted by the audience as well. If you're honest that we use some help, because 10 years ago to write grant funding, you might have gone out and got a consultant to come in and write it for you and then put that off as your own work. So it's not really different from that. It's cheaper and it's faster than a consultant would have been.
Well, we often don't have access to consultants and funders, and so we're already very under-resourced as it is. So any effective tools, but knowing how to use it is an advantage for our sector, I would think.
100%.
It's interesting because I actually assume everyone's using AI these days.
No.
I wouldn't think to write on the thing, I have used AI to do this, because I assume that everyone is using it. Not cutting and pasting, that's not what I'm saying, but like you say, curating something because it's faster to do so.
I don't know if we're at the disclosure I'm using AI to write my application. I'm not sure if we're at that, but equally they do it in schools, don't they? So they will, in education settings, they'll
Yep.
chip students for using it if it looks like they've just posted in the question and it's popped out the answer. So
for a first draft perspective as well, it can come in really handy when you need to go to experts outside your organisation.
Yeah, I'll just turn it off. I'll just turn it off. It's
all right,
a webinar. It's a webinar that I've been on. Oh shit. Yeah, I know. So I've got to try and
I'll just get the team to see if they can
I think you're not on mute. Yeah.
Leave meeting.
We can hear you both.
Leave meeting.
It's the joys of tech. So it's not going to solve all our problems, isn't it? We still get stuck on the mute button on and off. So I don't
This
have
time it's not Teams though. Normally it's Teams.
We've got some fantastic questions coming in, and there is one around, and we're going to get into this around the data sovereignty, and I think it's from Barry. So see if I can go back and find it. There's 2 questions in here. Privacy and data ownership risk. So are we kind of putting ourselves at risk when we're using AI? We think about this because we have, if those who serve on community boards often are serving on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, like quite a few. So there's often different tools that we're using. We might not think about this necessarily as AI generated or used, but it might be like Slack, WhatsApp, Google Docs. We're moving into having lots of these conversations, and with post-COVID, everyone's kind of moved online, and we're very happy about having our board meetings online and making decisions online on Zoom, these kind of remote tools that we're using. But when we think about, then we have these conversation tools, and I'm raising this because I had a couple of queries that have come in about making decisions such as removing a trustee and then reappointing on WhatsApp. So when we think about what kind of decision making are we using these? Are these the appropriate tools? So I'm keen to kind of explore that, because we might not actually understand that we are putting our organisations at risk by discussing, sometimes could be personal information with these many social services providers. We do hold a lot of very private data that in our email systems and our content, that kind of thing. But we might not always think that the communication tools we're using are safe or protected. So just want to get into the privacy stuff here and protection. What do you guys think?
This is Hill's area of expertise.
I can start, yeah. So I think as directors, as governors, this is always an issue, whether it's AI or not. Like we don't want to print lots of documents out and leave them on the bus or where they can be found. We don't want to, we want to make sure that our computer is secure, and that when we're, reading board papers, maybe don't do that on a plane, that kind of thing. So privacy and security is always an issue. With AI, I think it's about making the right choices in terms of what tools you're using and how you're using them. So, there are freeware versions of AI, and some are better than others. But with the free ones in particular, I guess if you're cutting and pasting information into these tools, then they're usually training the models behind the scenes, and so that kind of IP or sensitive information can go off into the cloud and into the AI and be used elsewhere. So you want to make sure that whatever tool you're using, you've had a look at what the privacy is, what the security is the information you're putting in training the model, then you might not want to put sensitive information into that particular AI. I guess, I think this is a big one for boards everywhere is, what is the right AI for board members to be using and to be using them securely? Because what you really want is commercial data protection at least, or, enterprise is better, but not all organizations, particularly not-for-profits, might not be able to have the enterprise grade, but you want some data protection in the tool you're using. So know what your tool is, and then the security and the privacy pieces around it, because it is really important to make sure sensitive information doesn't go where it shouldn't.
Yes, and I just want to, it just reminds me of this an article in Canada and about someone had used the thumbs up emoji, and that was considered, had agreed to a contract. So you have to start thinking, what the heck? If you've just someone's put in something in the chat function and now suddenly you're bound to a contract obligation. But yeah, in the wider big scheme of things, these can have ramifications, and we probably need some policy and some guidance in this space for how do we operate.
If I could jump in on that as well, there's two lenses in there moving forward. I think the first one is the policy and guidance, and anyone, and Rose and Hills, I know you were down at this, anyone that was at the IOD leadership conference will have probably heard the question, can we put our board packs into a chat GPT to condense it and get the summary view? And the response was not a good idea, because of, you don't know where those tools are going. And to Hills's point, particularly the public and open source ones, the ones that are free, you just don't know what's going to happen with that data. So the recommendation there was, don't put your board pack in, read your board pack yourself. Now, obviously, if Board Pro come out or Diligent come out, the two market leaders in board management software, if they come out and say, we now have an AI tool embedded, that one's a bit different because it's part of the tool you're already using, and you can go with it. The other lens, I'd say, and we're starting to see this coming through, Adobe really got slammed for it last week, but it's also starting to come through in other areas, is where the organization brings AI into their terms and conditions. So I haven't got the full picture of what Adobe did, but they basically changed their terms and conditions and said, we own anything you create in our tool. Other organizations are now changing their terms and conditions to say, any data you give us may be used to train our AI models. And that's not even technology companies that you'd assume, but I saw an example this morning of a hotel that was doing it to their guests. So you'll give us some data and we might use that to train. I think where we get into now is it's really, really, really important. It was really, really important before, but we'll add the third really now, that you understand what's in the terms and conditions. You don't have to have read the whole thing, but definitely get to that point is what's going to happen to my data and any data that I put in your tool, and use that to inform your decision-making and how comfortable you are with either personal or organizational or personally identifiable information being used to train someone else's model.
Yeah, and I think and when I think about us as in community sector, right, is around, this is all coming, it's all kind of here, but before we get too far, how do we embed it within our own policy guides, templates, and protect our own organisation? So what that looks like just at a normal board meeting, and I liken it to the health and safety. It's a huge kind of focus over quite some time. There was lots of guidance that was top of mind about PCBUs, like our protections of those we work with and things like that. So there is, I think, like, what you said, Hilary, it is a bit of homework into digging into what this means, and we have to have the conversation. That's why we're doing it now.
Maybe, Rose, I wonder if maybe it's useful if we talked about enterprise grade AI. So how Microsoft M365, so Microsoft 365 Copilot works is when you buy that monthly subscription, what happens is when you use your Copilot, any information that you cut and paste in or any files you link off to, that all stays within your Microsoft tenant. So it doesn't feed the model, the data doesn't go anywhere. So that would be like a secure AI, if you like, and all the policies around security and compliance that your organization currently has in their Office 365, their M365, With the Copilot, it's all the same. It's just, it stays within your tenant. So that's an example of when I talk about, you know, commercial data protection and enterprise grade data protection. That's what I mean. There are other productivity suites as well. Microsoft, but that's just the example I thought I might just bring it to life with.
Yeah.
Nice. And we'll have some more articles and tools and resources for people to check out too. So there's a pathway here from Tia. So she is from Te Whenua Walker, so up the East Coast. So this might be over to you, Dan, around data sovereignty. So interesting one. How can Māori communities whānau hapu iwi protect their data sovereignty and keep their data in Aotearoa? And so that the knowledge isn't shared beyond whānau hapu iwi. What insights have you got for us?
Yeah. The ideal outcome that whenever I speak to Māori about this is it's heading towards how do we actually create our own Māori AI built in Māori data centers on Māori land. That is definitely the goal, the North Star. But that is many years off. And in the meantime, my message, and I do want to make sure that you're wary of AI, but don't be fearful of AI. We need to engage, and so there are models that can allow you to lock it down. You can create your, as Hills was talking about, you can protect it. You can start from that technology strategy, your identity strategy, privacy, governance, or have all those structures in place around. And not to plug Microsoft, but you can build that within your Microsoft tenant, secure it, and then you can lock the data into that as well, and guarantee that it won't be trained on your data. So that's one option. In terms of an external facing way of things, we've got to be careful about. First of all, I saw a comment in there about how can I learn about tikanga in terms of from an AI. That it is still very. It's early days in those spaces. It's early days in Te Reo Māori. It's there, but it's not perfect. And so whatever we look at with regards to our Te Ao Māori within AI, it's we've got to take it with a grain of salt. I saw another comment in there as well around let's make sure that we are careful about what we read, what we see. The pictures, the videos that we see, we don't take it as 100% of what we see. We've got to think about the tikanga of how we engage with AI.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask if you just check your mute button, because we're hearing a bit of conversations happening. We've got a few people online, which is natural when it's an open Zoom call.
That might have been me. I'm just in the office here, and someone. One of those loud fellas just walked past. Yeah.
Okay, you're excusing then. Yeah, thank you for touching on that, because it is around giving over information, and Hilary's kind of touched on that too. So whatever we're entering into these tools is like, where is that information going? Can it be used kind of against us? It's a little bit of the fear of the unknown. And also, how do we manage this as well and scale it? So yeah, a little bit tricky on the data sovereignty, because I think there's a few comments in there as well. Where are some of these policy guides for us? How can we adapt that and use those? So some templates, something community governance we can work on with the likes of you guys, but giving some guidance around it, because yeah, before we know it, it might overwhelm us. That's the kind of thinking I would imagine. No, everyone's gone silent on that. There's heaps of questions, so I'm just scrolling through. Do you know of any personal development opportunities where we can access how to use AI GPT? I've heard that the best way is play with it, just more in a structured way. I think you've got quite a few things you've been running, Hilary.
There are really good learning paths that organisations are putting out. So there's just a couple of Microsoft ones. But you're right, a really good way to learn about how an AI works well and not well is to play with it. And I think that definitely needs to be part of your 20 to 50 hours when you're thinking about learning, because you'll start to work out, oh, okay, so this works really well, or this is not working well. My one caveat with that is, because AI, it'll produce a different result every time. Sometimes you might try a prompt and it doesn't work, and don't be put off. You have to go back. It might be that your prompt just needs a bit of tweaking, and then you might get this amazing kind of output from it. So it's very experimental, I guess is what I'm saying. So keep playing with it to see how it works.
And maybe to build on that as well, as there is some great education out there. AWS have got some education on how to use their tools. That tends to be more aimed at the technical roles though, and how to build in AWS. As Hill said, Microsoft's got some really good tools for using Copilot. There's obviously YouTube videos and stuff, but there's also some other local smaller firms that are starting to build a broader, less specific pathway around what tools you can use and how. One of the companies I do a lot of work with, so full disclosure there, Unisphere Solutions, they are starting to build what they're calling the AI on-ramp. And so it's not about, they're not trying to sell AI. What they're doing is just working with organizations and working with people to say, here's what you could do with it. Here's how you could use these tools, and then let those organizations make the decisions themselves. For me, the one tip that I've got with anything Copilot gives me is, when I give it a prompt, I tend to be quite verbose at the start, and it comes back very verbose with its response. My favorite prompt that I then give it back is, be more concise. And my second favorite point is, turn that into bullet points. And both of those, what it's doing is it's retraining itself based on what it's just given you. And by being more concise, it's cutting it down. By turning it into bullet points, it's giving you something that you can digest. So obviously that first output looks horrendous, but you're able to, as Hill said, just keep refining it, just keep asking it, try harder, do that again, be more concise. You know, it's the simple prompts like that will uncover the diamonds in there.
And one of the things that you'll start figuring out as well is there are some really great key prompts that you can save. Hills is actually really good for it. She'll just send around our group chat saying, here's a great Copilot prompt or AI prompt that I found, and you can just cut and paste that, drop that into your OneNote or Evernote, whatever, and then pull that out when you need it. I've got one that I do every day that just helps me prioritize my day, and it's the first thing I do whenever I start work.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot of education, a lot of training, a lot of how we use it to what we're trying to achieve. I think that would be the goal, isn't it? So how do we bring it back to alignment to our strategy and our focus, and are we able to use these tools to kind of advance our purpose? So something that Blair, I'm just having a look at his kind of comments, is around tech strategy, and I think it's a really good point about what he's saying is, have we seen any good examples from other organisations that, like case studies, that kind of thing, that use an example of like good data governance and as our roles of directors? So has anyone got any case studies to share, or organisations?
Well, there's this company called Microsoft who have done quite a lot of AI governance, but I think it is really interesting to think about how Microsoft does do AI and responsible AI, because it has been something we've been working on for a while. And also what I really love is we're trying to make as much public as we can. So for example, we have 6 responsible AI principles, and we have implemented them into our organization through a responsible AI standard, which we've actually made public to everyone as well. So we'll make sure that we pop that in the chat. Now, not everyone is a software company, engineering company, so some of it may not apply. But obviously you could take a look at it and then kind of right size it for your organization as well. Another really cool thing with that as well is there's the New Zealand AI Forum, who've done a great job of gathering some governance information together. I do have that link right here actually, so I'll pop it in the chat. But what they've done is they looked at AI governance for small, medium and large businesses. I think they call it like governance light, governance robust and governance comprehensive. But if you go to their website, you have to scroll right to the bottom of that page, and then you can kind of explore AI governance documentation that might be relevant to your organization. So that's a really good place to have a look around.
And just Brendan is asking about the Te Mana Rūnanga, and there's also He Tikanga Paihere too. There are a bunch of different frameworks. There's the data iwi, or the iwi data leaders group as well, and yeah, a bunch of different Māori frameworks out there that can help you with your governance. I'm personally using He Tikanga Paihere for my research that I'm doing around AI, from a Māori perspective, mainly to help with the bias that exists in the data. And yeah, it does exist, so you've got to be, again, that's helping to give me some perspectives. And I'll find the link for He Tikanga Paihere and drop that in as well. But there's a bunch of different, and Te Mana Rūnanga that's more of a Māori data sovereignty piece rather than so much as an AI, an approach of working with AI. I just want to make sure that, you know, in terms of, because there's also some fear mongering and for Māori in this as well, and you can get, and if you really do go down a rabbit hole, you can actually get to a point where you just stay away from it completely. And I just want to advise that, you know, there are ways to be able to work with it that can fit you and work with you in terms of how you approach it.
And if I could just add on to what Hills and Dan have said, the other point that I'll stress here is, by and large, there's obviously companies like Microsoft, AWS, Google, who are further ahead than everyone else, but by and large, most of us are at the same point with this. We are all standing about 1 meter behind the starting line on AI. So in terms of how organizations are governing it and the policies they've got in place, it is one of those things that no one wants to stand around a summer barbecue and talk about AI, but just talk to people in the same sector, other businesses, how are they doing it? Because when it comes to policy and the frameworks organizations should have, that's something that we should be open to sharing a little bit of as well. You know, policy is not IP, it's not market sensitive stuff. So if you are aware of a company that's doing really good things with protecting their data through their policy, have a chat with them and see if they're open to sharing anything. I think as a community, this is how we need to get ahead of it. If we wait for the government to try and come over the top and regulate it, we'll be waiting forever, because government just doesn't move that fast. So as a society and as a community, we can work together to build the guardrails that we need, and share what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on it, Anthony, about what's our role and responsibility here and where we're all at. Because, yeah, I mean, we probably talked about IOD in the conference there. There was a big plug about AI, but then the whole video didn't work. So there is this bit of hype and excitement around it, but some of it is just practical skills every day in the usage. So it's how we kind of are using it for our purpose and bringing it back to our strategy and our vision. That's what we should try to be aiming for. Are we protecting our organisations? We think about the 3 principles: participation, protection, partnership. Who can we align with who's doing this already that we can learn from? How do we protect the data? And how do we participate with our boards, and how we communicate this decision making and manage this data? Because, yeah, always just very conscious about the amount of information that we manage, and sometimes we don't have access to really good tech. So this is an issue for us as a sector, or sometimes very small organisations. We don't have a lot of the latest software. So yes, we've got 2 Microsoft people here. But we don't always have this access, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to operate, to put cyber protection over how we manage emails, our personal information we might be carrying over, our addresses, our contact list. All of that is real gold. So coming back to it a little bit is, yes, it's the AI in the future and everyone's talking about it, but the reality is there's probably systems already and processes that we've already got that we could start taking what we have and applying the AI governance over the top. So there's lots of comments in there about policies and guidelines, so I think we'll have to do something, get some guidance out there.
And actually, that's a really good question to ask as a board member. Is what is our organisation's AI usage policy? Like, what are we saying is okay to do and not okay to do? One, because you want to be following it yourself, but two, every organisation does need to have that quite foundational document. And often what people are doing is they're combining it with their privacy program or privacy policy. That's where most people are starting, because obviously the two are really related. It's data governance, it's privacy, that sort of thing.
And also within that conversation, particularly for the smaller organisations that may have budget constraints, when it comes to things like Copilot, and I'm not sure if there is a not-for-profit license on Copilot or if it's just a single flat fee, but don't look at it in terms of what it costs, look at it in terms of what it's going to save you. So for me, Copilot's $600 a year, breaks that down to $50 a month, put that into an hourly rate for your staff as to if they had this, could they be more efficient and are they going to save that much time in a month? And if they're able to save 3 hours a month because they're using Copilot, then it's money well spent as opposed to a cost on top of it. You know, that's 3 hours a month, they could be doing something else. So as you're choosing those tools, yes, there is a cost to them, but I'd say don't look at the cost, look at the value that comes out of it.
I think Rose froze there and we might have just lost her. But yeah,
We'll
that's
keep
riffing.
Yeah.
The ROI is pretty incredible, like I have to say. You know, the kind of stats we're seeing, you know, anywhere from kind of 20 to 40% increase in performance, that, you know, they've got more time to do other things. And it's not just about productivity either, that we're actually seeing people able to be more innovative because they've got more thinking space, more time to reflect on things, because a lot of their busy work is getting done through the use of AI. They're also being more creative as well. I have a podcast and YouTube channel, and I love being creative and writing and doing videos. And I find that I'm using Copilot to just like come up with ideas, and you know, I might have got myself kind of 80% there with those ideas, but with AI, I can kind of go the extra 100%, because it's just, you know, giving me more inspiration to do other things. And we're not seeing people do their work and kind of step away. They're doing more work, but it's the higher value work, which is what we really want people focused on. Over to you, Dan, sorry.
Now there's a question in there about the concern of the way that, you know, the power usage, the water usage of data centers, how it's contributing to global warming. That's a really good point. You know, there's a somewhat hidden and cost of AI, and that is the data centers. So it's thinking about that in terms of where things are going. I will say though that the efficiency around the models are getting better, and large language models is obviously a big part of it, but there's now becoming small language models. Things are even going down to, you would have seen last week, Apple released Apple Intelligence, which they're going to containerize it into the phone and use the compute from the phone. So you're going to get compute requirements going further and further down. I'm confident that things will get better in that space, but I'm open to what you guys think.
It makes the big tech companies like Microsoft pick up their game as well. So, you know, we're trying to find more sustainable ways to create power or reuse power. And so then we build our data centers in a better way. So it's kind of pushing big tech to do things in a more sustainable way, because actually that's what they should be doing. It's really important.
Yeah, I think there's a question actually about the power usage in environment, but was that what you touched on?
Yeah, that's
sorry, I got chucked on my own call today, so back to you go. Nice.
Maybe just if I could round that final piece off as well, is if you think about again, it's economies of scale. So where, for me, yes, there's that climate concern and the impact of running data centers, but for most organizations, and it comes back to creation versus consumption, for most of us as consumers, we're part of a bigger picture. So the sum of the parts, you know, where I'm getting to there is Microsoft got their data center just somewhere behind me in Auckland, but it's got hundreds or thousands of customers in there, so they're all contributing towards that. I think as a small organization, be aware that there is that impact at the top level. But by you not using AI, you're not changing that. You actually might be making it a bit harder for yourself. I think where the organisations that really need to be cognizant of the impact on the environment is those that want to create an AI solution from scratch and run that, because that then contributes to another data center that we may not have needed. So be mindful of your own role within there as well, and what the impact you're having. Like I say, by you not using AI, you might be putting your organization at a disadvantage, and the environmental impact's still happening there.
Yeah, so I was really interested. I think there was another comment in there around Adobe and PDF use, and I've noticed it through. I don't have access to that, but I think that was really good around whose ownership of Intel, and is that going to be a thing? So that was quite interesting. We've had heaps of questions. I don't know if we've covered off. If we haven't, then I don't mind, but we'll try and get to some of these. Also, all of the links that we've got here, we will share out in the video recording. So if you can't access it in the chat, don't worry. We'll share this out with you post talk. So, and Brenda shared a lovely document from the Social Wellbeing Agency and some consultation about that with the NGO about data use. So that looks really good as well. Just before we wrap up though, any other thinking future state, and what is the future AI, and what do you think? Are we going to, is this going to impact our sector? Are we going to lose our jobs? Is it going to be a robot doing everything? Are we all going to freak out? Like, what? Reassure us here. What's going to happen?
I'll say it'll definitely impact our sector, and it's those who are not engaging with it and not using it will be impacted, probably in more negative ways. So I do encourage you, what Hills was saying around, try to take that time to learn about it and spend that time. In terms of losing the jobs, man, you know, I don't believe that'll happen at all, because what you are doing is some of the most important work in our communities. So you will be needed. It'll just mean that you'll have more time and more ability to do better and more impactful work is what I'll say.
One of the things I'd like to finish with is that it is changing so fast. Like even at Microsoft, we are just scrambling to keep up with the pace of change. And so I think my kind of thing that I've learned is that it takes a community to keep up with everything. It's really hard just to do it on your own. So, you know, connect with each other, and maybe that's a role you could play, Rose, on behalf of everyone. But if everyone is kind of sharing ideas with each other, you know, sharing AI policies with each other, sharing this is the latest thing and this is what it could mean to our sector. Like, I think it takes a village to keep up at the moment, just because we can't even plan 12 months in advance. It's like what's happening in the next 2 to 3 months. Like, it's just changing that fast. So yeah, use the power of everyone on this call, everyone in your sector to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah. Maybe there's a couple of final thoughts I've got in there as well. And the first one is there's so many solutions out there. The question that you should be asking alongside, can we use AI, is what's the problem we need to solve? Because that's going to drive you towards the solution you want. For all their faults with their terms and conditions, Adobe Acrobat has an AI in their PDF tool now. That might be the tool you need. There's Copilot, there's Gemini, there's all the, so look at what the problem you're trying to solve is, and that will guide you to the solution you need most of the time. The other one I'd say is and I've used this for a few other people as well, that those AI solutions, the various ones, they're a little bit like your kitchen appliances. They each have a different requirement to what they do, but they still require human input to work. So you go into your kitchen in the morning, there's the toaster, there's the coffee machine, there's the microwave. They all do a job, but they still need you to push the button first. And that's where AI is at the moment, by and large, for most of this, is they still need someone to tell them what to do. They are not sitting there coming up with ideas about how to solve world hunger. They need someone to sit down and put those ideas in and then ask the question. And that's where the value comes from. So it's really people plus AI is the future, as opposed to AI is going to take all of our jobs. I think Neil put it in there, is that AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use it will.
I will say, start small, whānau. You know, don't think that you have to go large with this. I created something for my whānau, just a small tool, and she's called Te Whenua Walker, named after my nana. but it's for my cousins who are over in Australia and helping them connect and learn about who they are. And it's just a beautiful little tool that seems to really resonate with them. You know, engagement is something that I think you'll find AI is just a powerful way to engage.
Yeah, it is. It's like taking a good advisor along for the ride with you and getting the best out of it. So it's like working smarter, not harder, isn't it? So being more efficient. So who can do with that? We all could in the time of juggling everything. And I do thank all the audience with us here today because, yeah, you give back so much to our communities. It is around efficiency, productivity, giving us back some time so that we can make more of that human connection, because that's where the real true value is. Fantastic session. We've had a huge amount of thanks from everyone with us today. So thank you so much. We'll turn this into a nice audio so you can listen in, and video content as well. All of our past board talks are on our website. So just jump onto the Community Governance website. And thank you so much to a fantastic panel. Hilary, Anthony and Dan, I'd love to have you guys back again, because this is just the starter, isn't it? We need much more homework, work, to make sure that we're really looking after our organisations doing the right thing in these roles. So fantastic to have the calibre that we've got here today, and that you're sharing all of the expertise with us. So thank you so much. And everyone, have a great weekend. Mana wātia, te matariki. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora, Rose. Thanks for putting this on. Ngā mihi, kia koutou.